I guess I'm gonna mute everybody for a second. All participants are muted. Continue. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see such a lovely bunch of folks on, and we are on a field trip. Woohoo! If you haven't figured it out yet, Brianna, the S4 team, Brianna and I are down here at the mothership, we like to call it, the Office of the Chancellor. We're here with Judy Botelho, and we've been doing some different meetings, talking about strategy, talking about our strategic directions. And so since we were down here, we just wanted to take a nice 20 minutes, no more than 20 minutes, to have some kind of higher level discussions. And I do want it to be discussion. I admit, last week, I kind of dominated, I'll admit it. But want you all to have a chance to also ask some questions while we have Judy here. I forced her to do this. She was accommodating, but she was also like, really? But I do want us to just kind of touch on getting questions from, the consortium at large, but also understanding, the strategic direction of the Centers for Community Engagement and the way that S4 fits into those strategic directions. It is very easy. I have definitely been sensing, feature creep, and it's so easy. This happens naturally. We balloon out. We get more and more into whatever projects and things we're doing, and this and this and this. I think it's really important to have a living strategic vision and strategic document, and that's why we get together, and that's why we revisit some of these things. So we're gonna talk about this a little bit, and I'm just gonna ask Judy a few questions. If you have questions, please. Oh, hi Michael, hi Robert. If you have questions, please throw them on into the chat, because it's probably going to be the easiest way to do it, since we are a pretty large number on the line. And Brianna will take those and we'll kind of bring those into the conversation. But first, I just wanted to just check in. Judy, would you just give everybody just a kind of state of the union from your perspective in terms of vision, where you're seeing things, what you would like to communicate out to this consortium who's been trying to really utilize S4?
So, hi everyone. I hope you're having a great Wednesday. And I would say, so there's, I'm sure lots of you have been hearing about the 2025 graduation initiative. I have yet to have a webinar with the service learning folks, and I'm not sure how many folks are on this who are part of the internships or other programs using S4.
My bad. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. That wasn't me this time. Yay. So I really wanted to talk a little bit about the 4 areas of focus for the graduation initiative. There are actually 3 objectives to completely eliminate the achievement gap, close the time to degree, and, now I'm forgetting the last one. Sorry about that. We were just coming from another meeting, and now I just think. That it will come back to me. But the way that they're looking at this is in 4 areas: academic innovation, which service learning would fall into, smarter student supports, and they're including things there like early start, summer bridge, learning communities, supplemental instruction, strategic partnerships, again, an area where our work will heavily fall into. And then in the last area called focused leadership. And that is really geared towards the presidents and the provost and academic leaders on the campuses, and looking specifically at those things. Not going into this in depth. I will do that when we meet as a service learning network in our first webinar. Hope to have that in a couple of weeks. But I did want to give you a little bit about the way that they're structuring the graduation initiative effort and what that means for us. The call to service funding letter, you will see that's going to be coming out. Award letters will be talking a lot about the grad initiative and service learning's role, and kind of hopefully a renewed focus looking at lower division courses. I believe I shared this at the director's retreat, where in some of the data that I pulled, we noticed that 68% of our service learning courses are in upper division, with only 17% being included in the lower division. And so if we know that we're losing most of our students in the first and second year, and we believe that service learning is quite effective, then we really need to be looking at helping to promote more service learning in the lower division. And I want to have further discussions with all of you on this. As far as S4, we are now at 18 institutions and one system-wide program. So, woo! Exciting news. It's only taken us 6 years to get here. And I think there's possibility of getting another program or two. We've also started to expand, as you know from last week's webinar, into many other HIPs. So CSUN is exploring field, including using S4 for field trips. We're adding more internships into S4. And so as Tracy mentioned, one of the conversations we've been having in the last 2 days is our capacity and what are we really able to support at this junction in time. Because one of my goals is I really want to make sure that we give and we provide the level of support that all of you really need, without also kind of stretching Brianna and Tracy too thin. We feel really confident that we're almost done with our major development needs by the end of this academic year, right? B?
That's the plan.
Great. So given that, one of the areas that many of you who've been around from the beginning know that my vision with S4 was always not just about the executive orders, right? It was, yes, let's minimize staff workload, paperwork, let's support the risk management process for these experiences, but also let's try to support risk management process for HIPs outside of service learning. But I also want to use service learning as part of our data collection. We are doing that as part of the KEC research study, and I know several of you have also created your online evaluation forms, and I think that's exciting. One of the next steps that I hope we do take as a system is identifying an instrument that we can all agree on. Each campus can have some of their own questions, but that we're going to specifically look at some things. We've been getting requests from other programs like social work who want to use S4, and we're at the point where we are asking ourselves, should we take on those additional programs right now? Some of you I've had conversations with regarding the purpose of S4 to also be kind of the external face for our institutions with our partnerships with community organizations. It's kind of intended to be the one-stop shop. Where are we? What community issues are we addressing? What are our students doing? These are things we never were able to really know and address fully in this, across the system in a timely, effective manner, as you all know. And so I want to make sure that process is as effective and efficient as necessary. And if we do expand to other programs, then one of the things that I think is really important, and those of you, again, that were around in the beginning know this, the conversations that I know many of you are having with your colleagues in other programs, those need to be continued. Those need to be effective to talk about, well, what can we share as part of the San Jose State experience, as part of the Sac State experience that we want our students to know and have, regardless of what program. What do we want our partners to know about our institution? And how do we inform them about how we're using S4? So part of it is taking a step back and asking yourselves, what kinds of language are we using? Are we using jargon that's not going to be understood by anyone? Are we using the word HIPS in our homepage, the landing page for S4? Are we providing a space for faculty, students, community partners, or people who are not partners? If they come onto your page, do they know what S4 really is and how they can access it and what their role is? and which programs are using S4. Those are all things that I think are going to be critical moving forward as we think about messaging and the work of S4. I'll stop there because I know I've said a lot to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, and again, feel free. I hope people can hear me okay. I'm essentially using your microphone when I'm talking because otherwise we'll echo. Yeah, thank you, Judy. And, I have to say, yeah, you just gave a lot. I don't know where we begin except for the fact that being here, it always reminds me that the connection between the nuts and bolts of a database and of a student who's saying, I can't log in, to then we just had a meeting with the strategic director. I called him the captain of strategery. I don't know what his title officially is, but brilliant guy who's, kind of the newest executive here at the chancellor's office. How you take that experience and how do we translate into what they're trying to find out about that student and how they're trying to best serve that student. It is a long way to be able to make any conclusions and to successfully, get that far down. And all of you are essentially, this is what we're doing. It's like we're holding hands across a very long distance of trying to say, here's what we ultimately all want to achieve, and here's that student who's signing up. One of the things that we've just been talking about in terms of now that we're gathering this data, what kind of conclusions can we begin to make about a student who's taking service learning, about their matriculation? Can we make any sort of assumptions about their matriculation, about their experiences? And can we do that on not only one student scale, but across the CSU? I think this is also really timely because we're moving towards the end of the term. We've been talking about how we capture actual hours versus estimated hours and having to have that capability within S4, which of course two webcasts ago, I showed you. If you haven't seen it yet, I showed a video on how to do that. Hopefully we can start to move into that a little bit. I didn't even realize what you were saying earlier about the service learning data, about like a number of hours served and how there's a difference in terms of the amount that needs to happen for service learning to be effective.
Yes.
Yeah. I know that there's some questions who came through too. So you wanna read them?
Oh, you want me to read them?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, this question comes from Dana. Hi, Judy. I came to S4 discussions in 2013, and it was always my understanding that the idea and the hope was that other programs like social work and education would use S4, so I'm wondering, why are we now asking if a program like social work should be included in S4? Also, since we started building our S4 in 2013, we have always wanted our partners to have access, and we've always wanted multiple partner signatures on our time logs. Where are we with those functions?
Great. So, Dana, I'm not saying that we're saying whether we should. I'm saying we've committed to the ones that we have, so Sac State Social Work Program. What I am examining, and this comes back to last week's webinar around staffing and our development needs and what everyone needs. I want to make sure that we're fully supporting effectively the programs that are in S4. Many of you are still in development phase. I can't remember what the exact number is now. Is it 10 that are live?
So as of, and by the way, folks, we're working on the executive summary for Cal State S4. So this will be coming out to you as well, just a nice overview. And so we're pulling some numbers just to sort of let folks know kind of where are we at. So this year we have 19 campuses committed to using S4, 13 are live or live piloting, so you're actually collecting data from students, and there are 6 who are in some sort of, additionally, who are in some sort of development phase right now. And I kind of want to speak to this as well, because I feel like, number one, I'm kind of an outsider, and Judy does rely on what I'm telling her when I say we're reaching our capacity. And what I understand she wants, and we all want from a system. And that I think just all around, what we see when we begin to expand S4 is, it's the term feature creep, which I brought up, which we want to make sure that we are super focused in terms of this system was designed for Centers for Community Engagement first. Now, what that means is certainly service learning. It means other forms of community engagement, certainly, but we're trying to offer this, and this is another one of our primary goals that you'll see and has always been, which is to make this affordable for campuses. And that's difficult to do and meet myriad needs for a variety of different. So what we find is every time we bring another user group in, they say, but we need it to do this, 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 and this. And all of a sudden our list of development gets really long. And then all of a sudden the whole system doesn't work as well. So we're really trying to keep this nice and focused. It's not, yes, in a perfect world, a campus would have one system. And I don't know if maybe even Long Beach would like to speak to this, because when you,
I was going to say she has a question.
Great. So because I was just thinking about this, because, when you try to implement a system campus-wide, it is a bear, and now I know why. And that's why we decided, all right, we'll do CCE, we'll see how that goes. We'll do service learning because we have the best traction there. We know that a lot of campuses now are starting to do academic internships within their CCE, but knowing how to grow S4 means that we are not going to put the cart before the horse. We can't afford to put the cart before the horse because we will be sustainable in terms of our finances. So, go ahead, and when are we unmute?
Well, I want to add to that too, because again, not that this vision's going anywhere. It's just about where we are and wanting to make sure that we're meeting current demand before we continue to expand.
Right.
So this vision of trying to support other HIPs, I want you to all talk. That's why I mentioned the homepage, the landing page for S4, and it being inclusive of other programs as they do come on board. I also, in speaking to Tracy and Brianna, I also have to be part, you all know this that know me. I try to protect people, and I'm trying to protect my staff and make sure that they're happy and that they make you happy. So I can only do that.
People pleasing.
So I can only do that if I'm thinking, really strategically about how effective we can be around costs and staffing. And while S4 is well supported here and people see its value, the graduation initiative is one of our most ambitious plan the CSU has ever tried to do. And so we are such a small cogwheel in that. Do they see our value? 100%. But we are such a small cogwheel into the strategies that they are looking at. For example, they're looking at our administrative procedures, not just our academic efforts. And, as those things kind of start rolling out, you will see the academic innovation piece. We will be one part of that, but there's other academic innovations that they are on a grand scale, to target. We have 470,000 students. So they're looking at all of those kinds of things. So again, I don't want to give the impression that this vision's going away. I just want to make sure that we are at a good place by the end of this year. Those of you, there's live piloting campuses. What does that mean? That means no one yet, not any of you, are at 100% capacity using S4 for your placements. Until we can, I do sit back and ask myself, well, can we really move forward with expanding more if the programs who are even live are not at 100% capacity? That's my priority. That should also be your priority.
Okay, so we have a question from Karina, and then we have a question from Adrian, and then a question or a follow-up from Dana as well.
So, and we will talk time logs.
So do I mute myself?
So Karina, go ahead. You go first.
Actually one.
So it's actually one.
Okay.
So I got two things. One, to the point that Tracy brought up that I think we can speak on in terms of expanding on our campus and how those conversations are going. And then a question back to you, Judy, because we want you to be happy so that we can be happy.
Wait, where's that thing you do with the hand?
There you go.
Oh, boy.
Go on.
The question is, and I'll frame it around my comment, but I'll say the question first. Can we as an individual campus help to either advocate for and or highlight the importance of the capacity and resource question, maintaining a high level quality customer service, but also that cost, stays viable. Can we help with that, given that conversations are going on with or without us on our campus, Judy? And I'm going to give you an example. Just got out of a meeting yesterday where nursing, social work, teacher ed have heard about this thing that we're piloting and want in, because they're also having conversations with technology folks here on campus, with high impact practice conversations, and they want to sort of get a head start before those conversations take off and decisions get made around resources and strategic priorities here on our own campus. So they're probably thinking, oh, if this tool, whatever they're calling it, some of them call it S4, some other folks are calling it something else, is going to help us advance our own conversations here on our campus through the documentation, the reporting, but the high impact practice conversation. How can we get in? So it's a two-part question. One is, can we use that to help leverage the quality, the capacity, and the resources needed on the S4 side, and at the same time, not inhibit folks from wanting to, be a part of it?
So you have to mute.
I'm muting. Got it. Okay, go ahead. My bad.
Were you going to?
No, go ahead. No,
so what I would say to that one is yes. It goes back to the last week's webinar. Tracy mentioned a little bit about some of the ways that we're thinking about how could we support expansion to other programs. And one of those ways is if campuses are saying, we have all these programs and they really love S4 and they want to come on board, then that's something that needs to come up the chain, that I would say have, your AVP share with Dr. Miner and others here at the Chancellor's office, because that will go a long way. And two, though, it will then result in everybody having to pay. Yeah. And it's not going to stay at $7,000. So one of the things that Tracy talked about is if there is an expansion or if there's some specific need or request that we're seeing, then we're going to say, okay, we can take that on, and this is what it's going to cost to do that. And that's an additional cost above what we're currently charging, because that will enable us to bring in additional staff. I don't know if many of you really know that Tracy's only part-time. And she does an amazing job part-time. And, obviously Brianna just came on board in April. And I know you all know this because we all work with very little and minimal. So I'm speaking to the choir. But when it comes to technology, everyone's used to things being quick and fast. And when you do bring in, I think with social work, we definitely have this S4 figured out in a good way for that group, and it'll work, and internships. But we have never used we have not used teacher ed programs or undergraduate research. And so everybody comes in with their own particular needs. And so it comes down with that tweaking. And as I have learned over the years and built, when I started S4, I was like, I wanted to do this and this, and I've had to learn to step back. I've had the same kind of learning process over the last decade around research and evaluation, and learning to be focused. And I think it's really hard for us sometimes to kind of take that step back. And I always value and appreciate the guidance and expertise I get from people who do know this. And so I listen very intently when my S4 staff, what?
Sorry, that was me.
She just wants to have Halloween live out a little bit longer. So when they're telling me certain things, I'm really listening closely to what they're telling me the issues are, and feature creep and the agile development world. And I have learned myself, doing this for as long now with S4, you think something's going to be so simple because you'll leave it, oh yeah, we can do that. And then you get in the weeds and then you're testing it. and there's some kind of breakage, and that slows everything down. And when you're having then other requests and bug fixes, all of those kinds of things come into play when you have such limited staffing. And so that's what gives me caution. But I do think, it's a rethink. It's, it makes me think a lot about our community partners, right? There used to be an adage of our community partners have no money and they can't really support. And then we had to say, wait a minute, they get grants and they can help support in these small ways. And we have over time created amazing community partnership relationships where they are giving some money, but we wouldn't have thought that before. And I think part of that is also in S4 thinking outside, like I'm trying so hard to keep costs down. And at the same time, if we are going to really meet the mass need, then what is that going to be? We did Tracy's been doing a cost analysis. I think she put this on last week's slide, but I don't know. We've had so many meetings, I can't recall, where most companies charge 10 cents per FTE. Well, that would cost each campus $47,000 in the CSU per month.
24 a month.
24 per month?
Something
Okay.
like that.
24
I can't remember.
So, I mean, you think about that.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. There's this has never been about money. The money that we are getting here is about an effective product. And so, yes, whatever you can do to help elevate that, it's important. Do I think we're going to get more money from the Chancellor's Office for S4? No. But could we make a case on each of our campuses to say, if this is such a priority of all of these programs, and this is what it's going to take, what would that cost be? And do we split it among all of those programs? Or do we say, this is a priority of the institution and it's going to be X amount of money and the provost office has to cover it? Or the VP of student affairs in the provost office and business and finance, because this is handling a risk management process. What kinds of conversations are happening and how can you help bring that? How can I help bring that message with academic leaders? I have had those meetings in the past. I'm happy to have that again. I think if there continues to be more interest than what we're currently serving. I hope that it was a long-winded answer, so.
It was a long, confident question.
Kind of answered Dana's question as well, which was, if you need more resources and support, what can we do to help with that? But there's one other question from Adrian. I don't know if we want to get to that or.
Yeah, well, I wanted to just briefly speak to a few things that you mentioned, and also just specifically related to Long Beach, actually, because I do think that there's a great need. That's one of the things that we have noticed is there's this great need, and and a lot of times there is, because this happened with Long Beach, at least this was my perception of it, was they were looking for one system that would be able to span multiple programs. And then we all kind of got in a room and they asked, can it do this? Can it do this? Can it do this? Can it do this? And of course, I'm not a marketer. We don't want to be a marketer and say, yeah, I can do everything. And so I was very honest and said, I don't know, and I don't know, And then a year later, we find ourselves, I don't know, they're still having conversations about which system should we use, right? So maybe one of the things that, I guess, when it comes to a direction when we're expanding out beyond CCE is, at the very least, we do discovery. And that we say, we discover if it wanted to work for this, if we were to take 3 campuses and find out what it would need to do for them or what they perceive it would need to do for them. And then we price that out and we say, if so, here's how much it would cost. Now you all decide if this is collectively something you want to do. And my feeling, just as we have done a little bit of expansion out, is that will never end. There will always be this list, not only of different, whether it's HIPs or whether it's even not what's considered formally a HIP. There will always be this, field placements. There will always be this list of, but for my program, it has to do these things. And then there's another list for each campus's program, So I got to stop that bleeding. like right now. I'm stopping the bleeding because I want us to be able to do for CCE, for Judy, and for service learning and for community engagement what S4 can do best and not get distracted by that because I have this much time and this much amount of resources to do it in. And until we can grow next, I want us to remain really focused. Oh dear.
So can I ask Adrian's question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Scroll back. Okay, so Judy, you discussed, oh wait, hold on, let me fix the muting here.
Did I do that?
Yeah, you didn't mute Judy in, so it was confusing. But
Oh,
I
sorry.
fixed it. It's okay, I fixed it. Don't worry about it. Okay, so Judy, you discussed the graduation initiative, and Adrian would like to hear how the plans for maintaining opportunities for service can be done and well within these new goals. We are experiencing some pushback from admin about our community service program.
So just about community service, not service learning?
That's just, we would have to unmute her. It is Adrian. Oh wait, maybe she responded here. Yes, community service.
So I don't know if I have a straightforward answer today because the last 2 days we've been in meetings with folks here. Learning a little bit more about what we're going to do with S4, the data, and how difficult it is. I think I got a wake-up call today around how we can use the data that we do have to determine the impact on retention, graduation, and persistence.
As a
single cause, like as a cause effect. And that is really difficult, even with the data that we do have.
And that's not just us, that's pretty much
that's all
across the
HIPs.
board,
So it
from what
wasn't
you
just
said.
service learning, it's all HIPs. And I think probably there, if you're hearing similar things on your campus, that is probably where that is stemming from. So what we do have though is qualitative data, which I think we're going, so one of the, we just had a great meeting with one of our science experts here at the system office who said to me, think about what your short-term, what you can show short-term, and what as a system you want to say, these are the short-term outcomes of service learning, and how can we elevate our qualitative data? Because those are the things that are right now most effective. We're working with them on our KEC research study and getting that data, and that's long term. So the kinds of data that I think our institutions want around persistence, graduation, retention, we can see a little bit about that, but when you're doing propensity score matching, it's very difficult to do that on a short term and to attribute that to just the HIP, because we know there are so many factors in that. And so one of the things that we are going to do moving forward is at least start to use the data dashboard to give us the demographic information about our students doing this work that we did not have before. So
Some clarity on propensity score matching.
Sorry. I will talk a little bit about propensity score matching.
And we'll probably also want to have, based on what we learned today and some of the data dashboard stuff, which I think was really interesting, because we are with S4 getting into, the thing is, like the ways we posed it to a certain extent is now we're starting to actually be able to get this data. What should we do with it?
Correct.
So we could probably have an entire thing on that, on kind of some of that stuff, I think, in and of itself. Because I do want to do a time check. Again, I know everyone's shocked. Oh, we're going over. And there have been some great stuff in the chat, great discussion. Clearly there's a great need for a continued conversation and communication, and so that's why we are.
This is really the start of it. I wasn't really planning on getting into this today because I have not. We just had this meeting. I'm really just processing what I heard, to tell you the truth. So let me first describe propensity score matching. So when we give data, when our data from S4, the KEC study, what have you, goes into the data dashboard, what they're doing is they're doing a comparative analysis to find students that will be as clean of a match as what they call the treatment. So service learning, our service learning students would be what we call treatment at this point, right? So it would be, what are the students who are not doing service learning, and to try to find those variables. Some of the issues there are the data dashboard tracks students by cohort when they come in. That is not how we are doing service learning. Service learning is taking place at all different times. We're not cleanly starting and saying, okay, everyone that's coming in 2014 as first-year students or even as transfer students, we're not doing it that way. And that's how the data dashboard works, is through a cohort model. And so for us to kind of then track to see what their persistence, retention, and graduation rates are, it's really difficult because it's all over the board. Can we identify whether they graduated or not? Yes, but can we say it's because they took service learning? No, because there's a whole, it's just like any other research. There are all factors. This is part of why the Keck study is kind of taking out, looking at both quality and some additional factors, but because our sample size on the control side with the propensity score matching is low, that becomes a little difficult on using the data dashboard, which obviously includes 10 years of student data. And even then to kind of match the students one-to-one is difficult. And so when we were talking to them this morning about our service learning data across, we finally just said, okay, let's get the data, just demographic data that we do not have of our students as a system. And most of our campuses, except for those of you who are maybe working with IR over the years, have. So who's Pell eligible? What are the percentage of Pell and non-Pell eligible? Who are, how many students are considered in the underrepresented minority category versus not? What are their grades? What are their grades at the end of the term? What else was there?
Well, and then the hope would be, the other kind of piece to this too is, as we're looking at then, how can we have a consistent evaluation across campuses? So then looking at those who are taking these service learning courses, like, okay, so how do they rate their experience? And then looking at the demographics. So we're just finding out like who's taking these courses and why, and what's the result of that. I mean, that's huge in and of itself. That's not been done, really.
So we're definitely going to be short term. We're going to take what we have in S4. We're going to get basic data about our students, female, male, what their proficiency level was in English and math coming in, some things that I've never had. And again, just recently looking at where are our courses. Again, this doesn't say anything about the quality. We will be able to use the actual service hours piece as part of some of this analysis, but in the short term, it's going to be more simplified versus our long term. And I think with the conversation that we need to have as a group is, what other short term, what are the key things that we want to be able to say system-wide to provide at the end of every year around students, even civic engagement, career development. That's all long-term kinds of things that I think we're getting at with the study, that we will continue to get at in further research. But what are some short-term things that we are hearing from our administrators that we can all agree on that we want to collect? And so that's part of, I think, a longer conversation that we need to have. I know each of you are hearing some of those things. And so what's going to be helpful to me is, what are you hearing? And what are the ones that then are, that we all can agree on? Okay, this is what we're going to focus on for our reporting in the short term.
And that's great. And I kind of actually do want to bring it back. Thanks, Adrienne. And I want to bring it back to which is being talked about on the chat as well and was talked about earlier, which is when it comes to some, in S4, some things that we've identified, not on the evaluation necessarily, but on the feature request, two things that were mentioned earlier. One is the community partners being able to log in.
Yes.
That feature is, we have been testing that feature is available. A couple of campus programs have tested a little bit alongside us. And we're excited to say that feature is available and happening. Honestly, it's one of those things where only so many resources. I would like to write up the documentation so that you have it, rather than us just saying it's up, go ahead and try it and let's hope it works. So that's coming because we're trying to get this all kind of going. And then the other piece is the time log. And the time log piece is also one that is high priority for many campuses. So we know that's one where across the board, that's pretty straightforward. It's really the ones, that's why this is the thing. The ones for community engagement that have been mentioned by those of you who have done the majority of the piloting and the work in S4, they're pretty straightforward. Those are the ones we want to focus on. It's when we're bringing in these other groups that we start to be like, oh, gosh, we need to generate revenue. Should we do that instead? That's where we don't want to get unfocused. We don't want to do that because what we want is for this to work well for those of you who this system originally is intended for, with a vision that it could be for more.
I would also add one of the things that needs to be more strategic is how you're sharing. So I think, can you all hear me?
It was me. It was my bad. Sorry.
Okay, great. So is how we are sharing quotes. How are we being strategic about sharing what we are hearing from students about these experiences? Because those things matter. But how often are we doing that? Are you using social media and highlighting some of the feedback that you're getting from students and faculty often? Are you only doing that at the end of the year? You all know I ask for quotes. What kinds of quotes are you getting? Are you editing them? Are you following up with students or faculty and community partners to get a little bit better? Those are the things that we will, on a short term, we can also effectively talk about, whether it be service learning or community service programs. So, Andrea, you have that great first year experience program where students are doing it as part of that year long, and you've gotten some great quotes and there's a publication. But are people really reading that? How are we sharing that out? I think part of it will be the strategy around how are we communicating often and frequently the message of students' experiences. And sometimes we think, oh, we've shared it once, and so we're not going to share it again. No, you have to do it often, frequently. And that's critical to getting the message out. And how are you getting the message out to your academic leaders who are asking this question? They're not going to read a million things. And some campuses, presidents are doing videos where they're compiling all of the great things that are happening in the year, and community engagement is one of the highlights. Are you part of any kind of large messaging that comes out from the campus to the campus community and your larger community so that folks are aware of the impact of this work? Are students sharing their stories through campus dialogues? As you know, there's voter registration drives. There's dialogues happening right now around the elections and Black Lives Matter. And what's happening, how are we sharing the impact of this work with others and allowing others to also share their experiences? That is quick. And I know that's kind of what we've had for a long time, but during this time, in the short term, that's going to be critical.
I think it unmuted when I made her spotlight.
Oh, got it. Okay. And then I want to just follow up on one more thing, a little more nuts and bolts, which is we're talking about the time log, we're talking about community partnership, and this is very S4. And then there's the next follow-up question is, well, when is it available? When is it available? And as I had discussed, last week with our consortium model, it is available to the guinea pigs. It's available to those who are, we can't test it. We can't do extensive testing ourselves. We need the consortium to do that extensive testing. So we have no problem and want to work with a couple of campuses who's like, I'm ready, I want to use it now, with the understanding that you can't expect that there won't be any bugs. We have a little 99 bottles of bugs on the wall, take one down, pass it around, 127 bottles of bugs on the wall. That's how development works. It's not a matter of will there be any bugs. It's do you have the tolerance as a campus to say, hey, we're going to roll out online time logs. Are you guys, so just keeping that in mind. And so same with community partners. That's just our request is, so when we say when, well, depends on if you want to break it with us or not.
So this would be my question back to everyone, because Tracy did mention this part of last week's webcast around this is the ideal way that we test a development feature, and this is what's sometimes occurring, and the last bar was, and this is what's really happening. We do it, Brianna and I test it, it's not enough, and then it goes to live, and then we get hit with, it's not working. So it would be helpful, I think, to hear from you all around, I know everyone is so busy. Is there a possibility to say, okay, this Monday or this Tuesday morning, I'm carving out time and I'm going to test this feature? Or are you asking, because I don't know, can the key masters can you ask the key masters to test the feature?
Sometimes I felt like, for example, there are some really engaged key masters. I want to give a shout out to Sean, who's on from Channel Islands, and B, who's on from Sacramento. We have some great key masters out there who actually, and so that is super helpful. Yeah.
And so, and I know some of it is because you're going to use it anyway, and you're going to find it when it's live that it's not working. So is there a way in everyone's very busy schedules? And I have to say, like, even for me being part-time, I have to schedule certain time where I'm just open to my staff and they know, okay, this is the time, this is your drop-in hours. And other times I'm either having meetings or I have to get some other work done. And so is there a way for folks to schedule some S4 special time, even if it was 30 minutes, to test a feature? Because we don't want it to go live and then everyone be frustrated. And unfortunately, that is what's happening often. And so I'm wondering if there's a strategy that we can think of to say, something gets pushed out and say, in the next 2 weeks, dedicate 30 minutes to test this feature.
Long Beach says they're willing.
I love hearing that. So if there's a way when we're pushing out, if we could say, okay, in the next 2 weeks, please test this and give us your feedback.
We can certainly do that. I mean, we can try and put that structure in place, and we can just see. I mean, I'm willing to put it out there. We'll see. We know everyone's busy. I'm not, we're just not going to operate under any sort of assumption.
And what do we need maybe out of the 19? What's a good sample size that you both believe? Because we know all night, not everybody's going to do it. You just can't get to everything.
Sacramento, Adrian, all of them.
They're all right. Look at America.
Wait, I know you guys are willing, but the reality is things come up. So what I'm asking B and Tracy about is, what's a good sample size? 6?
We'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's as many people, and if you're going to be consistently using it, we'd love you to test it before we actually,
Right.
because we don't know all of the little things that
everyone
want to do.
uses.
So I don't know how you want to use it. So
Okay.
I need you to go use it.
Great. So that would definitely be a huge help, I think, in limiting some frustration on everyone's part moving forward. And I can tell you, even myself, I mean, you all know, those of you who've been around from the beginning know, I knew every detail about S4, especially before Tracy came, because I had to. I had to understand all this development. I learned all about Drupal and all these crazy things I never thought I would. And since I have them, I can actually step back. But because I stepped back too much, I then wasn't sometimes as versed as I needed to be. And so I've had to make my S4 time, you know, to be like, go in. I use the system. I'm in there. I'm in there at least several times a week now. But part of it was, you know, I took such a step back that I wasn't using it. And I paid the price for that. And I recognized that that was on me. That I couldn't be an effective leader to my team and supporting them and really understanding the issues that they were having if I wasn't using it. So, you know, that was my lesson learned, and I just had to make, I've had to make the time for it.
Yeah, what are we going to do today? Let's go into a database. That's not usually what people are saying, so we understand. We try to make it as fun as possible. We're going to have to finish up.
Yeah.
We went too long, and I have to go catch a plane pretty soon. However, I did want to give one more shout out to a couple of more folks because, you know, you were mentioning how are we sort of the outward facing, how are we encouraging, and Andrea Wells shared a document in the chat. So folks, if you have a chance to look at that, really good about trying to get that out there. I also want to give a shout out to Michael Fallon, who's on as well, because I know that he did a presentation at a conference. I'm not sure which conference it was, but I know it was at Stanford, I think, and included, you know, here's how we track, and Cal State S4. So I know that some of you are seeing this as a way to really start to get traction, not just on you know, on your own campus and with others, but also even on a larger scale. And so in the community as well as with your counterparts. So shout outs there. I'm sure I've missed others who also have done a wonderful job in, you know, continuing to be a champion for this. And thank you, Judy. When we're here at the Chancellor's Office, we see in a very real way how hard Judy works to be a champion for all of the Centers for Community Engagement in a pretty high-powered environment. So we're going to end on that. I think, yeah. Thanks everyone for joining. I know it's just the beginning of a conversation. Thank you to Judy. I kind of put her on the spot and made her and was like, we're just going to talk about these things. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's an ongoing conversation. And the one thing we've certainly learned is that communication is the key to any system. You have to be in communication at all times, whether it's S4 or whether it's with your community partners. Anything else for the?
I thank you all for spending all this extra time. I know it's over what we usually do. And I also, you know, this has been a journey, a learning journey for all of us. And I appreciate you all sticking with it. You know, I believe in this. You know that I believe this will make our lives so much easier. And I think it has in many ways. And it is only going to help us tell the impact in the way that we need to. So it's slow going, but I think we have some good short-term stuff moving forward. And as far as the growing, let's continue that conversation because I think we're all very much committed to that. I just also want to make sure that then you don't feel neglected and that my, you know, Brianna and Tracy don't leave me. Because as much as I know, I don't know nothing like they do. So, all right. Well, thank you, everyone.